Hi everyone, welcome to 5 Day Snacks, your go-to podcast for insights on thriving in dynamic and fast-growing teams. Here, we aim to reflect, pause, and rethink our daily grind for a better, more human future. I'm your host Mansi, and today we are joined by a remarkable guest, Sudheer Bandaru. Sudhir started as a software developer in Silicon Valley, worked at startups and large corporations like Merrill Lynch, A&T, and Hewlett Packard. He moved into engineering leadership roles at startups that went IPO, led multiple M&As in the US, and managed remote global teams. Nearly a decade ago, Sudhir, the founder and CEO of Hivel, found himself struggling to connect his team's work to business outcomes. Managing a geographically distributed team of engineers, he saw firsthand how gut instinct rather than data was driving crucial decisions about hiring, work allocation, project pipelines, and feature releases. Micromanagement wasn't his style, and constantly asking for updates wasn't scalable. And here's what struck him the most. Other departments like sales, marketing, and customer success were highly data driven, and engineering teams, the backbone of product development, was still relying on intuition. And that's sort of when the idea of Highwell took root, if I'm not wrong, right, Sudhir?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's give a very warm welcome to Sudhir, a leader with passion for innovation and actionable insights in engineering productivity. Sudhir, thank you so much for being here today and welcome to 5 Day Snacks podcast.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you so much, Mansi.
Yes. Okay. So let's dive in right away. I think my very first question is that looking back, what was sort of a pivotal moment in your journey that compelled you to really focus on building a tool for engineering visibility? Was there a specific experience that shaped the direction that Hivel has taken?
Absolutely. So I was working out of Bay Area. I had a remote engineering team. I was a CTO there. And once we missed a major project deadline,
Right.
sometimes bad things happen for good reasons.
Yeah,
Um, Instead of doing a group retrospective, I tried to do a one-on-one meeting with a bunch of key folks, understanding why did we miss the deadline.
I see.
And I spoke to five people and I got five different answers.
Hmm.
And then I said, I need data. I'm not able to make sense of any of these things. And then we started digging into Jira data, understanding what is happening. I'm like, let's go into Jira. Every time you look at a dashboard, it tells a different story. The moment you peel the onion one more layer, there is lack of data. There is missing
Hmm.
data. There is missing input because
Right.
engineers are focused on writing code, not giving report updates. I
Agree.
said, okay. I'm like, every time I go to any direction, I'm hitting a stone wall. I don't know what to do about it. I started calling a bunch of people, Bay Area. I'm like, some of these companies like LinkedIn, Uber, Stripe, Notion, and said, how do you guys do this? And they all kind of opened their stories saying that like how they have very uh, robust analytics tools that will
Hmm.
give you visibility into your people and processes.
Right.
And then I said, how do I get access to this? And they said, we have an army of people who are building this for ages,
Oh,
right?
okay.
And then I said, I'm like, why can't I build it? I cannot build it. I said, let me start with some basic scripts. I started to pull some scripts for writing some Tableau dashboards and all.
Right.
And then I started to discover a lot more insights. Oh my God, I never knew this was happening. And then
Right.
I said, I'm like, now it gives you motivation to do more, right? And
Agree.
then realized my side project is becoming my key project.
Hmm.
I said, it's not going to scale. I have a core business to run, right?
Right.
I'm like, every business has its own business goals and like roadmap, and this becomes an internal tool.
Right.
That's when I realized this is a very deeper problem to be solved and
Hmm.
a bigger solution rather than writing a bunch of scripts and putting them on Tableau dashboard. And
Right.
then spoke to all these people and realized a lot of companies, even up to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 engineers, do not have access to this data. It's a very fragmented and broken approach today.
Right. Right.
And that's where I said, like a B2B SaaS platform would be perfect because people want tools like this, but at the same time, they don't want to build or cannot build internally because of the
Agree.
bandwidth. It's
Yeah.
not about the skill, it's about the focus, right?
Hmm.
Simply how I couldn't give all my focus because I have a different roadmap to work on.
Agree.
Every company is dealing with the same. Then I said,
Yeah.
okay, perfect. And that's how Hivel was born. I'm like, Hivel is short for high velocity. Our
Oh,
mission is to make engineering team a high velocity team.
right. Oh, that's very, very interesting. I think sort of bouncing off of what you just said, uh, talking about high velocity, I think the concept of working with velocity is often confused with productivity. So I have a question along those lines for you, that how has your perspective on measuring productivity evolved with time since you started working on Hivel, or you started working in your journey? Because I sort of feel like uh, in the wrong hands, data like this can sort of become micromanagement, the very thing that, sort of drove you away from looking at data in a very peculiar sense, if I may.
Yeah, I understood, right?
Yeah,
See, first of all, engineers are very smart, right? And we
agreed.
hire engineers because they are smart.
Right,
And constraining them to one single metric of velocity is like just narrowing down how you look at productivity as a whole, right?
agreed.
Um, Velocity today is just nothing but the sum of story points, and manually an engineer puts in whatever they think that morning.
Right.
And 95% of the times they're off.
Yeah,
And why do we stick to that kind of metric when we know it is off?
agreed. Agreed.
Right? By the time you master a project and understand how good an estimate should be, we change the project.
Hmm.
Or by the time you understand the project very well, the team members keep changing.
Right.
You senior somewhere, a junior member comes in, and then the story points are very relative.
Agreed. Agreed.
So that is a completely wrong metric to rely on.
Hmm.
Now, what you really need is a holistic deliverables as a business outcomes. My
Right.
business outcome for any founder or any CTO is not about getting more story points done.
Hmm.
Engineers will make you a hero on day one.
Hmm. Yeah.
They'll know the story points, right?
Yeah.
Um, but what we actually want is there is a quality, there is a speed, there is a throughput. It has to be a well-balanced approach.
Right.
And today, the dashboards or the data that we have gives you visibility into 360-degree story to say, hey, these teams are moving slow, but actually delivering with very high quality. They don't repeat their stuff.
Right. Right.
There is less rework. I'm like, I have some of
Right.
the best work is not delivered by the number of story points that deliver. They're
Hmm.
like, no, I gave a problem to this particular person. I know I don't have to work on this for another year more.
Right. Again, agreed, agreed, agreed. Interesting. So it sort of helps you not just see how fast the team is working, but also with what kind of quality and what kind of outputs the team is producing.
Correct.
Interesting.
Right.
Interesting.
And talking about your micromanagement question,
Hmm.
right? Referring
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
that. See, today, Agile has taught us some things that, we are never letting them go. And all it taught us is like, get a bunch of people in the room every morning when they're fresh in their head.
Hmm.
Ask them, I'm like on their way, on the commute, make sure, people dial into these so-called stand-up calls and tell me, what did you work on yesterday?
Yeah.
What are you working on today? What is a roadblock for you, right? I'm like, no, the fresh the state of mind, you're using it to give some information. And then while you still do these stand-up calls and like, a 500 people team, you're spending like, 500 hours per day.
Hmm. Right.
These 500 hours per day, it turns every project into green, green, green. And on the actual sprint release day, it turns into amber or red.
Right. Right.
Because these 500 hours for each sprint, like, we are talking about 5,000 hours per sprint for a 500 engineer team.
Hmm.
This is all just waste of time then,
Agreed.
right? The whole purpose was to kind of understand every day, navigate through the problems and like, make sure you deliver a quality
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
And if that is achieved, this is all waste. Or we have to do things very differently than what it is being done today. Where
Hmm.
do not rely on like, what you remember from last night or last week,
Hmm.
but kind of use data to answer the same questions.
Right. Right.
Right? So it's not a micromanagement. It is allowing people to manage their day better and meetings better using data
Hmm.
rather than thinking of it like a micromanagement. Micromanagement is focusing on outputs. Like
Hmm.
when at what time did you come to the office? How many hours did you sit in your on your computer? How many
Right.
lines of code you write? Right? How much time of that did you spend on your IDE? Right? This is
Hmm.
all outputs.
Hmm.
And nobody gets anything out of it. And especially millennials and Gen Z, they don't want to be measured this way. And nobody
Agreed.
should measure this way, right? Rather, they should be measured on, hey, did you deliver quality outcomes?
Hmm.
They want to work at 2 a.m. It's okay.
Yeah.
They want
Yeah.
to think through while playing foosball or ping pong. Let them do
Yeah.
that. Give
Yeah.
them the autonomy to say how they want to do, when they want to do. Just give them the outcome that you are expecting out of them.
Yeah. This sort of reminds me, there's this show called Mad Men, if you've seen it. So it's about an advertising agency culture in the 1960s and 70s. And there's a very prominent scene there where the creative director of a project is sort of sitting in his office, and the company head sort of comes in and is like, your entire team is, playing darts out there, and we have a meeting in 2 hours. And what is the team doing? I have no results. And he was like, the more they spend their time relaxing, the more better their ideas would come back. And they need this time to sort of, free play in their mind what is going on to sort of execute what they want to. So I will never tell my team to sit in their office and give me 10,000 ideas in writing and I'll pick one. They'll just be out there and they'll give me 10 ideas, but I'll know that they'll be the best ideas. So I think that's sort of what it reminded me of when you were saying this. And I think
Yeah.
definitely, I very as a youngish person, I definitely sort of relate to that sentiment of being like, if you'll tell me to sit in my office for 9 hours a day and work, my productivity levels are going to be really low because I need that time and the space to move around and think what's going on in my brain to put it down into words. So I think I really, really relate to that. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, right.
Yeah,
Let's give the economy and best of the ideas that we ever get, even as
yeah,
a founders. The best of the ideas that I got were not when I was sitting on my cube and
yeah,
on top, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right. I think the next question I have for you is, because we've been talking a lot about productivity, what's sort of like a industry buzzword or a trend in engineering that you think that we should hit the brakes on, or at least question a little bit more? Because it
interesting
kind of
question.
feels like you have some disruptive ideas in your head around the notion right now.
See, everybody, I'm like, no, if I spoke to probably 40, 50 people in the last 2 months,
Hmm.
one common thing I'm like, no, maybe 80% of them said is like, how is Cursor doing this?
Right.
How is Laravel doing this? How is Bolt doing this?
Hmm.
Right? And people are, for lack of better words, that feeling depressed that they're not able to do that level.
Right.
Right? And I'm like, I wanted to say that, I would never not compare myself to Cursor or Lovable or Bolt founders.
Right.
For every 5, 10 years, there is a Meta, there is Microsoft, there is Netflix, there is Google, there is Cursor. That's okay.
Right. Yeah.
Right? We all did not have the similar background, similar opportunities, similar proximity to talent, a lot of different things, right?
Hmm.
So rather, I would say, I'm like, compared to somebody, in your own ecosystem,
Right.
right? If you are a founder in India, maybe compare yourself to some of these great players like Girish Mathrubootham, who took SaaS to
Right.
uh, Stack, or Zoho, Sridhar Vembu, right?
Yes.
Or some other, another Series B startup, if you are a Series A startup, and so on,
Hmm.
right? It's good to learn from people who are more relatable, who have a similar background, similar opportunities, than comparing and feeling depressed about something that is not so easy and it's not apples to apples, right?
Agreed.
Uh,
Agreed. Agreed.
so more than that, I'm like, no, it says, yeah, like everybody, every LinkedIn post is about these same things. I'm like, no, 300 million ARR in no X number of months. Like, no, it's not easy.
Yeah.
Rather, pick what is more easy for the kind of team that we have, kind of opportunities we have, the funding we have, whatever we can do. How can we make better use of the resources that we have is more important.
Agreed. 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 100%. I think that sort of uh, um marks the difference between a healthy, I think that marks the difference between envy and jealousy. Like, I feel like envy and jealousy are two very interesting words that we use interchangeably. Being jealous of someone is, I want what they have. And being envious is, I want to work hard enough to for them to stay there, but for me to reach there so I can compete with them, right? So I think a lot of times we sort of tend to interchange these words and be like, oh, how can we, do this as fast as possible and get there? But understanding that their journey, their opportunity, like you said, I believe really, really, like I really believe in the concept of people reaching the places because of their very unique positions. Like if I pick someone who is from the same age, socioeconomic background, similar lifestyle as me, their experiences of life and my experience of life still would be completely, completely, completely different. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's how it plays a very big role in the kind of person you are, how it shapes you and your environment, and how it supports you to, sort of reach that scale. So I really agree with your sentiment here.
Yeah. Being inspired is different. Comparing is different, right?
Yeah,
So it's they should inspire us, they should challenge us, but not backfire that whole process. That
absolutely.
you're not enough or I can do better and all, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think sort of bouncing off of that, because that's a very interesting thing you mentioned that. So a lot of founders I've found is there's two things at play here, right? You want short-term velocity, but there's also like a long-term play here that you want your startup to sustainably grow throughout the years. So how do you make time for the long-term play when there's always like a pressure for short-term velocity?
Yeah, this is a trap that a lot of people go into.
Hmm.
Going multiple startups, right? I'm like, no, this is my third time I'm doing a 0 to 1 plus and all. Started off at a stage or sometimes -1 stage, if I have to call it.
Right.
Uh, what I've learned is like, as a leader, you have to take the time to pull yourself out and pull your team out of this.
Hmm.
This is where leadership retreats, the fancy leadership retreats, is what we see, right?
Hmm.
So you need to step out of the office and you need to dedicate some time and put time on the calendar and
Hmm.
bring your key people to those meetings.
Right.
Throw away the phones, throw away the laptops, just catch your notebooks and like get out of your office.
Hmm.
And this is something that we have a bunch of these rituals. I'm like I myself work from home occasionally when I
Right.
wanted a thinking time. And then I kind of list out what are the things that I'm not doing, I should be doing. And then I also have something called the strategy meetings with a key
Right.
respective one person per function in our team. And we started this from way long back. As
Right.
an early startup, we'll do these strategy meetings, and it's more important than ever before at the early stage than later
Hmm.
stage,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because we want to be pivoting, thinking. I'm like, no, is it working? I'm like, no, are you brute force marketing? Is there a real PMF? These kind
Right.
of questions you need to ask these hard questions in a strategy meeting, not like do a one-on-one meeting in between your 8 other meetings, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So that one, pulling out yourself out of the office, I'm like, and as a founder, I'm like, I do work from home occasionally. When I say work from home, I'm like, no, at least it's a day without meetings.
Hmm.
Um, I probably sit out of Starbucks or something and then just
Right.
get my stuff done, thinking time,
Right.
and I journal to do these things. Second
Hmm.
thing is we set up strategy meetings. We bring in, and these are like the ones that happen on a monthly basis. If we miss that week, I'm like, no, we'll try to do it next week, but we'll try to make sure we do one in 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
Third is writing OKRs.
Hmm.
OKRs feels like a big company thing, but I'm like, no, I strongly believe it's something, it helps the companies to focus more because as a early stage company, you have millions of ideas and you can go in million directions and you will not make a dent anywhere. But giving that focus time, like writing the OKRs will help as a leader, not only for you to have a focus, but the rest of the team, you don't have to keep telling them on every week over week basis or sprint over sprint basis what they need to do,
Yeah. Agree.
right? You're done, you're sorted for the quarter. You cannot plan for the year, but at least for
Yeah.
the quarter you can. And within
Yeah.
the quarter, we do these check-ins and then you can evolve, drop something, add something if needed.
Agreed. Agreed.
So
Agreed.
only when you do these things forcefully, you get to the strategy discussions and more long-term plays.
Interesting, interesting. I think this is a similar conversation internally as we are also early stage startup. We were having this same discussion internally right now, a couple of days back that, it is very important for leaders, people at leadership roles who are people managers to sort of get out of the headspace of constantly being there for your team and telling them, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I think it sort of ties back to the notion of hiring people who are highly accountable and people who are highly self-driven. I think that is a very important thing in early stage startups where you need people who are inherently motivated to do the work. Otherwise, it gets quite difficult to sort of navigate the entire 0 to 1 journey.
Yeah, that agency should be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. As we were talking about leadership, I think my next question to you would be what's something about team dynamics or leadership that you have completely rethought recently, or, sort of a thing that has challenged your notion about how you perceived it earlier?
Uh, General leadership, you're asking.
Yes, yes. Or how teams function within, since you've worked for large scale companies and startups, team dynamics and leadership.
The simplest way I would put this whole team dynamics thing is you can have two or 10 rockstar developers
Hmm.
or have a team of five very well collaborative developers or individuals,
Hmm.
right? So an above average team is better than the same number of rockstar developers who would work independently,
Interesting.
right? The moment you have a rockstar developer, everybody wants to become rockstar themselves. They're
Hmm.
not looking at the company first. They're trying to put themselves first.
Right.
Whereas a team dynamics comes into picture and they're all collaborating, we have so many instances where we said, I'm like, we're doing a hackathon and we have two teams. And then we immediately realized every team had a good prize money. And very quickly they realized that, hey, both our teams are trying to solve the similar problem. Why don't we come together and solve this together? And then at the end, they both the teams presented something, and I said, who should I give the prize to?
Right.
Right? And how can you make such a decision? I'm like,
Hmm.
especially when every team has their own prize money, right? Oh, we didn't think about the prize. I'm like, we just want to make sure what works out best for the company,
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
I ended up giving it to both the teams. That's a downside of it. But proud of the teams that we have here, where you kind of put the company first, and that collaboration has to be first than being a rock star yourself,
Hmm. Right.
right? So that is one thing what I have realized, and the chemistry among the team members is very critical, and how they collaborate, how they support each other, how they look for to keep the company first and the team first before individual first. That dynamics is very, very critical, and I've realized that early on. And that's how our teams have been built, and that's how the teams are successful. And they have team goals, team success, team failures.
Really interesting. Really interesting. I think that tidbit I personally really, really relate to, and I'm sure our audience will as well. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sudhir. Okay. I think pondering a little bit into the future, if you were to start Hivel from scratch today, what would you do differently? Is there something you would do differently?
Yeah, definitely right. I'm like, no, this is like I said, this is the third time I'm starting up, and every time I've done something differently.
Right.
Um, the first time when we got acquired back in 2011, that startup was very, very different. Then the startup that I started in 2015 is very different.
Right.
Now it's very different.
Right.
Like I started few 4 years back is different, and if I have to start now, I'll do it differently, definitely.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, Gen AI was not there
Right.
when I started. The team structures would be different. The kind of talent you would bring in would be different. Right? The kind of ambitions you would set would be different. So,
Hmm.
so many different things on how you would think differently today, if I have to start today, right?
Right.
Uh, so, mainly, I would say it's about the changing macro things that
Hmm.
would force a founder to think differently and start differently. But if I have to go in a very tactical way, the first principle thinking, if I have to do one thing very differently, I would wait on working with, I would be very picky about the ICPs.
Hmm.
Like, I would be very, very, I'm like, one of the mistakes what I would have done is like, no, very soon, slightly later in the game, realized we started to pick wrong customers.
Right.
when the customer came to us and then they said, hey, I'm like, no, we knew it was not a perfect fit, but like, no, being in the push for revenue generation and all,
Yeah.
rush for it. Yes, we want it. We'll do whatever you want. Right.
Hmm.
And they saw how much it costed us actually. Instead of them paying us $10,000, $20,000, we paid them back $50,000
Right. Right.
indirectly.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a huge distraction, huge loss, less value stuff, non-repeatable stuff.
Hmm.
So I would, if I have to start today, I would pick only customers that would be a proper example or ideal persona of how I want my customer to be,
Right. Right.
right?
Interesting.
Just one customer is enough per quarter if they can steer you in the wrong direction. Only one
Hmm.
customer per quarter can steer you in the wrong direction and lose you of opportunities.
Interesting. Agreed. Agreed. I think I would like to explore that a little bit. So that brings me to my next question, actually, which is divided sort of in three parts, but we'll talk about the customer bit first because I found that quite interesting. How do you think of or define success today for yourself, your team, and your customers?
See, especially you're asking it today.
Hmm.
Our success criteria has been simple internally at Hivel, right?
Hmm.
We deliver X to 3X, not 10X.
Right.
Okay. At least X to 3X of what we were able to deliver yesterday
Hmm.
without working experts,
Right.
right?
Right.
Now, how do you force yourself to get double the work or triple the amount of work without working yourself extra hours is
Hmm.
bringing in automation and using AI to streamline things,
Right.
right? Now, if I would say every quarter, if you are able to, this quarter, if you are able to do 2X and next quarter you can do 2X, I'm like, we are pretty good. We have
Hmm.
more importantly than compounding effect, we built a culture of continuous growth. We built a culture of automating things.
Right.
And every time, rather than forcing or challenging ourselves, instead of hiring somebody, can we hire an agent instead of
Right.
hiring a human?
Right.
Right. So that thought process is more important than the 2X and 3X rewarding outcomes, right?
Okay.
So that's the culture, what we're trying to build, and we are actually doing there. We are getting there, and we are doing really good across. I'm like across functions, teams are using AI today.
Right.
Um, uh, the moment you said 10X, I'm like, we will think very differently, and sometimes we may stop doing it. If you say 2X, let's start, take baby steps, and then, compound it next quarter, you will get there even faster than you think.
Right. 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 Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights with us today, Sudhir. It was a really, really great conversation. I had a really nice time chatting with you. And I think before we let you go, where can our listeners learn more about Highville and connect with you if they have any questions?
Absolutely. I am on LinkedIn, Sudheer Bandaru, Sudheer Bandaru, Bandaru. I'm on LinkedIn. I respond to almost all the messages myself personally. So would love to connect with people, would love to get their feedback and what else others are doing. You ask wonderful questions. I would have them uh, tell me what else I should be thinking of that I'm not thinking of, what else
Right.
they're working on. I would like to learn from the
Thank you.
audience.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And also thank you to our listeners today for joining us on the 5 Day Snacks podcast. Until next time, remember to reflect, pause, and rethink for a better future.